Dopey Podcast. Dopey Podcast. Well, now is the time for the Dopey Podcast. When you call in and put all your life on blast, and you call in and talk about your past, because your life was curious, hardcore and fast. So now is the time for the Dopey Podcast. Dopey Podcast. It's the Dopey Podcast. The Dopey Podcast, yo. This is the Dopey Podcast. This is the Dopey Podcast. Now if your life was furious, hardcore and fast, you feel like you want to put your life on blast, just call up the show and I talk about your past. Cause now is the time for the Dopey Podcast. Dopey Podcast. It's the Dopey Podcast. The Dopey Podcast, yo. This is the Dopey Podcast. This is the Dopey Podcast. Who Mr. Harlan pull up? Yes, I stay strong, Dopey Nation. Yes, all of my brethren and my sisters in and out of recovery. Give thanks for the Most High power. Yes, I. Rastafari. Peace and love.
Hello and welcome to Dopey, the podcast about drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. And I'm Dave. And welcome to all the new Dopey fans from This American Life. And
NPR Dopey heads.
Yeah, and the guest on the phone is to make sure that the transition to Dopey from wherever you came from is seamless. Our great friend of the show, Thelonious Monster Zone, Dr. Drew and Bob Forrest Zone, This Life, Don't Die, fucking Alo Recovery, the great Bob Forrest.
Here I am, the bridge between NPR and junkiedom.
Yes. How does it feel?
I am. You know, they really got it right. I just listened to it. I wasn't able to listen to it on Saturday. And, you know, always outsiders, and we've talked about this on Dopey and on Don't Die, and Junkies have been talking about it for 35 years, is how normal people don't get drug addicts. They just don't understand how the fuck we think.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But in this piece, I don't think they were trying to. It was an interesting new version of it, which is they were just reporting on this phenomenon. Right. And the humanness of you and Chris and what you were doing. I still don't think they get why drug addicts love to hear stories about drug addicts.
No, it was a straight reporting piece, but from the dynamic of our friendship, I thought. And if you guys don't know, this week, the show on National Public Radio, This American Life, did a show about war do-it-yourself radio things, and one of the things was about Syrian radio or something. I didn't listen to the piece. Yeah. I'm too self-centered to listen to it. And and the other piece was I pitched them Dopey, and they did this piece on Dopey, and the woman, her name was Dana Shivas. She's a super talented producer.
Excellent.
Right?
Excellent producer. Excellent.
Isn't her voice so good?
Yeah, But, you know, I've seen 1,000 exposés, and especially since the opioid crisis, you know, Vice and HBO and CNN and PBS, and everybody's tried to understand addiction. And instead of trying to understand it, This American Life just reported this relationship of you and Chris and your podcast and how you used it as a therapeutic tool.
I mean, the craziest thing to me is, like, you know, I was expecting like a wave of response, and there's been a crazy wave of response. There's also just been a little bit of guilt that I've felt in this whole thing, and I don't know if it's survivor's guilt, and I don't know if it's or if it's
undeserving. Like, I think, you know, you can go to any form of entertainment. People who are addicts, let's say, or, have, depression, or have childhood trauma, or come from dysfunctional families, all that whole category of which Dopey Nation is. And I've seen actors have great success and report to me it doesn't feel right, or they feel guilty, or like a fraud.
Right.
I certainly have had musicians, thousands of them, tell me that, including some of the greatest musicians in the history of popular music, that they just don't feel deserving, or they don't feel. So I don't know that it's so much survivor's guilt that you have. Is that yesterday I saw Dopey is number one on healthcare podcasts.
Not anymore. Something weird happened, Bob, by the way, and I should run this by you.
I saw it was number one yesterday.
It was number one overall. It was number one in self-help podcasts. And it was
whatever, health and wellness, self-help.
No, but dude, check this out. It was number 44 out of every podcast. And what I like to do when Dopey does well is I like to make fun of somebody else, and I use it as my social media tool. And I saw we were in front of Dr. Phil. So I tweeted at Dr. Phil, "Yo, what up, Dr. Phil?" and I put a picture of us in front of Dr. Phil. I swear to you, Bob, fucking 5 hours later, Dopey's off the fucking charts. It's not on the chart at all anymore.
Oh, you think Dr. Phil had you yanked?
Dr. Phil is number one overall now. He was 53, we were 44, and then I wrote, "What up, Dr. Phil?" 5 hours later, we're off the charts, and Dr. Phil's number one. A coincidence?
Oh, my God. No coincidences in show business.
No coincidence. Fucking Dr. Phil.
That's Oprah's machine just paid a bunch of
Bangladeshi taxi drivers.
Sri Lankan computer things to SEO the whole thing.
Dude, I want a new division of the Dopey Nation of Sri Lankans to get behind our thing and start jinging the machine so we can put an end to Dr. Phil's tyranny. Oprah I love. Oprah, I think you should have me on the show. I'd be happy to sit with you and discuss all sorts of things about film and food.
Doesn't he work for, I'm not up to speed on Dr. Phil or Dr. Oz or even barely Dr. Drew anymore. Doesn't Dr. Phil, isn't he a part of the Oprah machine?
I really don't know. I think he might be. I always thought that Dr. Oz was actually Jason Bateman playing a part. I saw him on the side of a bus, and I was like, wow, Jason Bateman's on a new show called Dr. Oz.
As the corporate shit media of America started catching on to this weird thing that nobody knew about, which was podcasts, then all of a sudden you got Dr. Phil's podcast and this podcast and that podcast.
Well, it was the people who have TV shows. They're like, I don't want there to be a medium where I'm not ruling the overlord of that medium. So he's like, I better have a fucking podcast. I think it's amazing to me because we did Dopey for fun and all this stuff and people liked it. And you're only as big as how many people you can reach or whatever. And This American Life reached a lot of people. I want to read you this email that we got from This American Life because it's very emotional, and I want to see your opinion, whatever.
I'm going to read you something that the Don't Die Wisconsin guy texted me, and he's a callous, cynical junkie, and it made him cry. He got choked up over this life thing. All
right, listen to this, and then listen to me that. Hi, Dave. My name is Dave, and I'm probably one of the many people to email you about the recent This American Life segment. For me, I'm kind of compelled to email you. I've been in recovery for over 20 years. A few years ago, I lost my younger brother to an overdose. I've never really been the same. I suffer from debilitating migraines now, and I can barely stitch together a week of functional days. But here's the thing. He died at the end of 2014, and I have yet to cry. I've wanted to. I'm sure you, as much as anyone, understands the healing power of a cathartic experience. On some level, I've known it needed to happen, and I've even tried to force it a few times, but nothing, until last night and today. I listened to the show last night on my way home. I never finished the podcast. I started sobbing midway through the section of the show about Dopey, a deeper sob than a sympathetic tear. I woke up this morning barely able to move and had a massive migraine. I proceeded to sit there and sob for a long time. During that time, a voice has been telling me to thank you and to reach out. I'd like to talk to you at some point. If you would be open to that, I'm not reaching out because I think I need to heal you. I'm reaching out because I have to, for me. You've helped me, but I've also get the feeling there's more. I'm reaching out because everything else I've tried to do to leverage his death hasn't worked yet. Aside from one public talk, which I'd be happy to send you. If you'd be willing, I'd just like to talk to you. I hope to hear from you. Thank you for what you've done so far. Crazy, right?
Crazy, man. That's going to start happening to you more and more.
That's crazy. There's
a certain responsibility that I kind of I didn't want, which comes with being kind of a public sober person.
Right.
Because you're so honest with what you've gone through with Chris, because Chris was so honest, because Dopey is so in your face, blunt about addiction and about sobriety and about that people that have been living in a fog about sobriety like this guy, it does crack open. There's a Leonard Cohen line, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. It's the cracks and the mistakes and the fuck ups and the not doing things the way everybody wants you to do them.
Right.
Like, to me, I've heard that in different incarnations, whether in person or via email or communications from sober people across the United States, which is AA got into this thing, I don't know, probably around the time that Betty Ford got invented, where you're not really supposed to feel feelings. You're supposed to take an action to escape unpleasant feelings. Right? So if you're sad because your brother died of drugs, get into action. Don't be sad. Right?
Right.
That became kind of a mantra in the 12-step world right from the time I got into it, that if you're feeling, because sadness is
dangerous. Right. Sadness is dangerous.
Will lead to using. Bill Wilson never really talks in the 12-step book about anything about going back to drinking other than if you're filled with resentment, you will drink again. He doesn't say if you get really sad, you're going to drink again. He doesn't say if you're depressed, you're going to drink again. Well, I don't know why. I think that's the narcissistic turn in our culture where people can't tolerate being sad. They can't tolerate grieving. They can't tolerate any uncomfortable feelings. So that's why there's so many antidepressants and pharmacological solutions to every uncomfortable feeling. And then the 12-step world became, pray about it. Pray to make it go away. Get into action. All this kind of stuff. And I think that you can see this guy's having physical manifestations of unresolved grief and pain and loss and sadness and depression, because he's been brainwashed to believe, I believe, that you're not supposed to be sad. You're not supposed to be mad. You're not supposed to be anything negative. You're only supposed to be happy and grateful. And that's what I've been railing against for 15 years. Because I get fucking sad. And if I don't tell Dopey Dave I'm sad, or Patrick in Milwaukee, or Evan at Aloe, or Chrissy, my wife, that I'm sad, I will get migraines. Something will happen. I'm going to use again. You know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, I'm like an open book with this stuff, and it definitely keeps me sober. When I feel bad, I talk about it. When I feel like shit, I talk about it. And I like, I have a guy at work. I'm like, how you doing? And he's like, oh, can't complain. But this guy's got every malady under the sun. And I'm like, dude, why don't you start complaining? Because then maybe you won't have the same problems. Not to mention, I'll feel so close to you if you tell me what's wrong with you. Because I love complaining. You know what I mean? Like, but it's part of my DNA to fucking complain, But that email it touched me because we helped him. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very beautiful. Like,
but I mean, don't it's not just our stuff that touches people. So my mom died when I was 19, and I was furious about it, and I had a really bad experience, and I got caught stealing her morphine, and it was just a bad, ugly scene. This is my grandma who raised me. So I just was cool. I was drunk as shit at her funeral. I rode my motorcycle up the steps and parked it at this Catholic church right outside the door. I thought I was Marlon Brando or something. And I sat in the back of the church, like there was 15 or 20 open rows, and then my family's was up at the front. My uncle came to the back and said, "Bobby, you okay?" And I was drinking out of a half pint. And so I obviously didn't grieve the death of my mother very well.
Right.
Fast forward 5 years, I'm high out of my mind, been shooting speedballs for 3 days with Hillel Slovak of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
And he went home, and I was just sitting in my house, and John Cougar Mellencamp, I forget if it's Little Pink Houses or some song, and it goes, and the line is, they say, "Boy, someday you're going to be president," but just like everything else, those old crazy dreams, they just kind of came and went. Ain't that America? That song, right?
Yeah, Pink Houses.
I had been up for 3 days. I was playing that record. That line hit me because my mom, who died, always told me, "Bobby, someday you could be the president of the United States." When I was a little kid, right?
Right.
Then when I became a teenager, then it switched. "Bobby, if you just applied yourself, you could do anything. You could be president of the United States, more aggressive." At the end, when I was a drug addict at 18 and 19, and she was sick and all the fighting that went on, she used to say, "You know what, Bobby? You could have been president of the United States, but you've thrown it all away just for drugs."
Right.
Right? So there's the evolution of my mom telling me I was going to be president or could be president of the United States to I was fucking up. I could be president of the United States, but you're starting to fuck up, to you're never going to be president of the United States because you're a drug addict. And that line from the John, I swear to God, I cried off and on for 2 days.
Because that line touched you. It hit you in that spot. It cracked open your grief. That's amazing. It cracked
it open, and it was cathartic, and it was healing, and I never felt that pent-up way about my mom or people's moms or all the kind of triggers that you get around the mother issue anymore. And I was still on drugs. So it's how the individual hears the thing at the moment in their lives that cracks them to let the little bit of light in. And that's what happened to this guy. Did
Hillel Slovak make fun of the fact that you like John Cougar Mellencamp?
Everybody did. Everybody we know did.
Now you're transitioning nicely for me, because I want to get into, because you've been on Dopey a bunch of times, and we barely talked about Thelonious Monster. And to be honest, like, I was a music freak as a kid, but like everybody has their world, you know what I mean? And I was aware of your band, but I wasn't in the world, you know what I mean? And then I saw recently that, there's this movie about Bob called Bob and the Monster. And
you never knew that?
I didn't know. I'm like friends with you.
Years and years. We've been friends for years and years. Well, that makes me feel good, because I'm not a big self-promoter.
I had no idea. I felt so stupid. Somebody mentioned it to me.
I don't mean you to be stupid. I just don't go around saying, "Hey, there's a documentary about me. You should watch it."
But it would have been helpful for me to see it, because you came on my show a million times. You came on our show, and we were like, we never talked about it. But so you guys it's still on Amazon, I think. Is it still on Amazon?
Yeah, I think it's on Amazon. That's why people are seeing it again.
It's called Bob and the Monster, and it's like this amazing documentary about Bob and his band. I mean, obviously, you were, I think it's funny when people say, what do they say, first class? What is the expression they used about like hardcore? Dr. Drew said it about Chris, a something class addict.
Yeah, top shelf.
Whatever, I forgot what he said. But you were this ridiculous heroin addict, and in the movie, and I don't know if I'm giving it away. I don't care. I hope you don't care if I give it away.
Yeah.
But when they show these scenes with Bob, but they turn it into claymation. And these scenes are amazing because they're like the dopiest stories. It's like Dopey in claymation with Bob. And you tell two stories, you know, the Top Jimmy story and that other story. And I would love it if you told that other story. It's such a crazy fucking story.
Okay, so Anthony Kiedis, the singer of the Chili Peppers, had gotten sober. And for good reason. He was far, way out ahead of us as a drug addict, right? And so he was obviously, if you're a circle of junkies, there's about 100 of us, the worst one is going to get either die or get sober first, right? And he got sober. And so he's my best friend, so then he started pressuring me or wanting me to get sober, and he kept pointing out, like, look at your life, and da-da-da-da-da. And so finally I just gave in and went to rehab, right? Because I love him, but also his life, there was just a new goodness about his life and about how much he cared about me, that he wanted me to get sober and whatever. And so I go to rehab, and you'll love this because I'm such a narcissist. So they wanted me to go to this LA rehab. It was him and this interventionist named Bob Timmons and my ex-girlfriend Maren and my managers. But they wanted me to go to this hospital in LA called Exodus, where eventually Kurt Cobain was in a couple days before he died. And I had read the National Enquirer, and I heard that all famous people go to this place in Minnesota. I didn't know the name of it. Yeah. But I know that Elizabeth Taylor had gone there, and Natalie Cole had gone there, and Eric Clapton had gone there. So obviously Bob Forrest should go there.
Sure.
Because I am in Liz Taylor.
Natalie Wood, Bob Forrest, come on.
So I go to Hazelden, and it was nothing like what I expected. Here's an interesting thing I talk about in all my groups that I do. When I went to rehab in 1988 or 89, I think it was, 88, I was the youngest person in the rehab. I remember Chris Penn, who passed away, the actor, he was in with me, and he was a little older than me. So we were the youngest people in there. It was all people in their 40s and 50s. It was all like airline pilots and lawyers and you know, just nurses, and it just was a completely different population that was in rehab in the 80s and 90s as is in now, right? Yeah. So I'm the youngest person. I've got dreadlocks, and I just, you know, but I really clicked with the guys that I was in the dorm with. I loved them, and I loved hearing, and it's full circle to Dopey. All we did was sit around and talk at night and tell drug stories and laugh. But in that laughter and that commonality of telling these stories about hanging out a window or the police are coming in the door and all this kind of stuff is this healing openness, honesty. You're beginning to be honest with other people about what you do and who you are,
and connecting with them, making friends.
That's why Dopey strikes such a chord with people, because Dopey is a podcast based on what goes around in the smoking area of a rehab every night. Yes. Drug stories, right? Survival stories is what I call them. So I loved Hazelden, had a great experience, but I'm not big on the God stuff. And so I come back to LA. I stayed sober for 8 months, hung out with Anthony. It was great. But I just was not going to be a part of some organization that talked about Jesus all the time. I still won't be. I'm just not a monotheist. I don't believe in any of that. And it's really, until you're desperate enough to make the 12-step approach work. Yeah. You're not going to. I
forced God onto myself through desperation, and it really worked out.
Yeah, so did my friend Pete. Did the same thing. So did a lot of people, but I just can't. I don't have that genetic, that my brain doesn't have that part of it active, right? So anyways, I ran my course with staying sober. I thought I would just start drinking. I started drinking at a Dodger game. I only drank for a few months, and then I was back on crack, and then back on heroin, and back in rehab. You know, like you go to rehab, I'm sure you've had this experience that every junkie has. You want to go on the day that you're talking about going, but then it doesn't get organized till like a week later, and then you don't want to go.
Of course, yeah.
That's what happened to me when I went to Hazelden the second time. And by the time I was supposed to go there, I didn't want to go there at all. So I stayed through the detox, and then a few days later, I just like, fuck this, I'm going to leave. And I just left, and I went to Minnesota and Minneapolis and hung out with my friends. But the night that I left, I didn't get to Minneapolis in time to find my friends or feel comfortable to knock on their door. I was at the St. Paul bus depot. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock at night. And I met this old black dude, and I said, do you know where to get some dope? And he's like, sure, yeah. And then we got dope, and then I went with him to his apartment, and he started fixing, and I was like, do you have any bleach? Because I didn't have a needle. And that's what's in the movie, the claymation, where he said, oh, no, you only want to use my needle if you bleach it, because I got the HIV. And I was like, oh, dear. You know what I mean? Like when you're hell-bent on dope, you got dope in your hand, and you know only one way of using it. So the story in the movie is synopsized. I went back downstairs. I tried to go find a needle for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It was freezing cold. I went to a liquor store. They didn't have any bleach.
Well, Bob, why didn't you go to Rite Aid and buy a needle for 50 cents?
This was 1988.
Okay, I just want you to let the people know that you couldn't do that back then.
You could not.
No.
So then I went back upstairs, and I was thinking of smoking it, but then I thought, no. And then he was nodding out. He said, do you find the dude? He had told me to look for some dude, and I couldn't find him. And so I said, no, I'll use that, and I'll just clean it out really good. And he goes, up to you. And so that's when I pulled the plunger out, and I put the whole needle in boiling hot water. You know, like you've seen on Marcus Welby or some medical show. You know how they sanitize the instrument?
Oh, yeah, boiling water. That'll do it.
Now, you look at that. Is that a crazy drug addict who doesn't give a fuck whether he lived or died? Because I can tell you, at that time in my life, I totally cared whether I lived. I was a rock star. I wanted to make $1 million and get married and have kids and live in south of France. There was no death kind of wish of me.
You just wanted to get high. The imminent potential death was not on your mind. I think kind of the way it wasn't on Chris's mind. You know what I mean? He knows that fentanyl killed people, and he was fucking dealing with straight fentanyl, but he didn't think it was going to kill him, and neither did you.
But the fentanyl deaths are different, because I talk to these kids. I've talked to them, and then they die of it, and I give them the heads up, and I give them I love and care about them, and come on, be careful. They don't really care whether they live or die. We've raised a generation. I mean, this country has become so morally, spiritually sick that people literally don't care whether they live or die.
I don't think they have a conception of that death is actually a possibility. Like, I really don't.
They do have a conception that there's no opportunity for them. There's not a lot of possibilities in life, and life sucks. I never, at my wildest worst, I never thought life sucked. I thought the way I was living it sucked. But I didn't think the deck was stacked against me.
Do you remember?
I was stacking the deck against me.
Do you remember standing in that man's apartment and and I'm sure after the fact you were like, I'm sure you got scared to death that you had HIV.
Yeah. So certainly by the time I got sober, I was sure that I had it.
Right.
I mean, HIV was an ever apparent danger to junkies.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think these kids nowadays, I don't think they think about it at all.
I remember after I got clean, I would get HIV tests, and I was sure every time I would take a test that it would come back positive. And then even a year later, like when I'd get a checkup, I would be scared that they missed it. You know what I mean? Like, and I barely shared any needles. I shared like one needle in my life because needles are.
Well, here's a dopey confession for you.
Yeah.
So everybody, because I had told that story to other friends and whatever, and that I was HIV negative and whatever. So it kind of got known that I was a risk taker or whatever.
Right.
And you got to understand, by 91, everybody's pretty paranoid and nervous about it, right? That's when you start having needle exchanges and HIV awareness and stuff like that. It kind of got known, like Bob Forrest might be HIV positive or have AIDS or whatever. So I did have, and I do still have, or it's in remission, hepatitis C. And I became very sick towards the end of my use in like 94. I got sober in 96. In 94, I looked pretty bad. I look like somebody who's going to die. You know how as you get older, the scale goes up, like you weighed in the 170s and now you weigh in the 180s. It just keeps going up, right? Yeah. Mine was going down. Right. Anytime I checked into a hospital or rehab, mine was going, it was in the 150s, then it was in the 140s, now it was in the 130s, right? And I remember thinking, I am dying. Something's wrong. But you're just so high every day, all the time on this march of drug taking that you kind of block it out of your mind. But you kind of in the back of your mind think like, I do have something that I'm dying from. And so people started to think I was dying. And I remember at the Viper Room, which is a very popular bar in LA, somebody asked me if I had AIDS, and and it was somebody who I knew I could manipulate. And he said, I want you to go see a doctor. Are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? Like, because people are saying that you have AIDS. And I remember him, he's very codependent with me. He's a friend of mine. He's very wealthy and successful. And I felt like this is an opportunity that I can manipulate. Right. This is how you become such a scumbag. So I told him, yeah, I do have that. And, I don't have any place to stay and I don't have any money. And I manipulated him for money. Like I remember he gave me, whatever money he had, like $600, which was a lot of money at that time. And then every time I'd see him, he would go to the cash register of the Viper Room and just give me all the money out of it and say, get yourself a hotel. And like, you got to get to a doctor. And he was trying to
he wants to take care of you.
Yeah. And then my ex-girlfriend knew that I didn't have HIV, and she told his partner, the owners of the club, he told the one partner, and the partners like saw me manipulating that and said, dude, you don't have HIV. Let's go get you tested. And the other guy that I'd been manipulating was standing there, and he goes, are you HIV positive or not? And I said, I don't know. And he went, oh my fucking God. And he had given me thousands of dollars. Wow. So then if I'm manipulating my friends to think I'm dying of AIDS so I can get money, imagine what I thought was going to happen when I got tested, when I got sober in 96. I was sure if there's a God in heaven that you all believe in, obviously I should be.
You deserve AIDS. You deserve AIDS from lying, yeah.
And there was one of my best friends who loved me, and I let him believe for like 6 months that I was dying just to get money for dope.
Well,
so that's how low we can go, ladies and gentlemen, from the This American Life podcast.
Right. I have to say, though,
now they're just like, I don't know about these people.
when I was sitting there, I got out of work. I worked my ass off, and all I could think about all day was the This American Life podcast, and that we were going to be on it. And I walked from Houston Street up to Penn Station, nervous to listen to it. And I put it on, and like there's Ira Glass talking about Howard Stern, and I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about Howard Stern for? And then he starts talking about Dopey, and I was like, holy shit. And I could take it because I listen to clips with Chris all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like I listen, people are sending me these cool edited little clips from Dopey, and I'm going to play one later on the show, and like, I love them, and I listen to Chris all the time. My friendship with Chris was documented on the show. My other friend who they talked about dying wasn't really documented on the show. And I'm sitting on the Long Island Railroad, and I hear my friend Todd on This American Life say, yo, and I say, what's going on? And it's like, I just started crying on the train. And, and I was just like, because this guy, like, oh my God, I've been friends with him since I was, 19 years old. And, I just love this kid, and he couldn't get his shit together. And I can't listen to his episodes because they're so sad, because he was the one person who was using that we'd have on the show, because I used so much with him that I just wanted him to be a part of the show. And, like when I heard him on the thing, I just lost it. And, And that's when I mean, like, the piece was so powerful, you know, and I didn't even realize, you know, I remember when they interviewed me for the piece, I was in the This American Life studios for 7 hours, you know, and it was 2 3.5 hour interviews. And after the second one, I thanked the producer. And this is what I said, Bob. It's just so crazy. I said, thanks so much. You made me feel like I really went through something, is what I said. And she goes, well, you did, you know, and I listened to the piece and it's like, I did, you know what I mean? Like, when it's happening, you're just like, everything's okay. You know what I mean? Like, I just tried to keep it going because I had this baby, the house, the work, you know, drug addicts die, I kept telling myself. And when I hear the piece, it's like, holy shit, you know, it's just so sad. And that my friends died. And it's in this little boiled down 25-minute This American Life piece. It's fucking weird. It's also weird to have your life told sadly and then to hear dramatic music. Like, that's weird.
No, I know. It's to be put into that format. The watching Bob and the Monster the first time.
Exactly.
First time I watched it all the way through was with my partner in Thelonious Pete Wise. We sat side by side in chairs and watched it on a computer because he was not that happy with it, right? And he wanted to see it. He's the guy who says, I'm the worst asshole in the world.
Right, I remember, yeah.
He's my best friend.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, he's my best friend and he thinks I'm the worst asshole that ever lived. So we watch it and he goes, well, I'm never going to, I remember he said, I'm never going to like this. And because initially the project was supposed to be about Thelonious Monster and the 80s music scene that kind of evolved into this story about me. And obviously I'm known as a manipulator, and I think he's always thought that I kind of manipulated it in that way. And maybe I did. I mean, I don't know. But a story about a drug addict musician who then becomes a counselor, who then is on this mission to change recovery and how it's viewed and how it's looked at, that even though it's me, I know that story is pretty important to tell.
Also, I think it's one of those stories that you check off a lot of boxes. You have the music, you have the 80s, you have Los Angeles, you have these iconic bands, then you have total fucking debaucherous heroin addiction, and then you have recovery. You know, you have an arc. With Thelonious Monster, you don't have the same arc of filmmaking, you know? Yeah,
so that arc thing. And so, but more importantly, what do these documents of recovery do? I guess some people have more ability to be honest, right? Obviously, you and Chris struck on something about being honest about your drug use, about what you think, right? I think,
right.
You know, I think it was correct in them comparison to Howard Stern, because Howard Stern was the first person I ever heard, and that was when he was on regular radio when I first got sober in 96, where, you know, I was married at the time and I thought about other girls, but you would never mention it. I wouldn't even mention it to Anthony. I wouldn't mention it to anybody, because you're like a bad guy if you're married after other girls. And here's this guy talking about it, and his wife knows it.
Right.
And now the whole world knows it. It was very freeing of what goes on inside married men's minds. That's why I always liked Howard Stern. That's why I don't like him now. I don't care what he thinks of politics or show business. I don't really care. I never did. I cared about how he expressed what it was like to be a married man. But all I'm saying is you guys have tapped into it, and the comparison to Howard and his honesty and his creating community of this blunt frankness, yeah. Do I think you guys did that on purpose? No.
I did. I totally did it on purpose. I totally did. I did. I listened to the Howard Stern show and I said to Chris wanted the episodes to be really short, and I was like, no, we got to just keep them company like Stern did. And I was like, we should just make it as much like Stern as we can. I would say that all the time, because I was a Stern fan and I loved the way he captivated me. You know what I mean? And I just knew that if I borrowed enough, it would be good for the show.
So you consciously ripped off Howard Stern?
Yeah, definitely.
God, you're much more clever than I am.
Well, I love him. I want to, I really, really love the way he does what he does. And listen, I couldn't, and I'm not a better person than him. I could never do what he does. There was just something about how he talked that it just really, he's a Jewish guy from Long Island, with a big mouth and a big nose. And I was a Jewish guy from Manhattan with a big mouth and a big nose. And I was like, I always thought he was gross. When I was in high school, I was like, this guy's fucking gross. Because it was at the time where just right before Private Parts, and he had all these posters up with him without a shirt in the subway with his long hair, his metal hair. I was like,
I didn't have to live with that.
I was like, this guy's fucking gross, and I got a job doing production, and my boss was obsessed with him, and we would listen, and all of a sudden it was like he sounded kind of like my family. He reminded me of how my brain worked, and I just got fucking sucked into it, and then everything you're saying, he would say things that you would think, and he wouldn't mind saying it.
Yeah, that definitely. So that's how any artist has with an audience, which is you're able to somehow say things in a way that makes people feel safe or reassured or they're not alone, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that recovery podcasts or recovery radio or this recovery movement does is I think that it saves lives. Now, I don't know how much Howard Stern saves lives, but I do know that Dopey makes people feel not alone, not ashamed of the things that they've done. That I try to do that. I did a podcast about suicide after Anthony Bourdain killed himself.
Right.
I think about killing myself often.
You do?
Yeah, often.
Still?
Yeah.
What do you think?
All the time. Huh?
What do you think?
I think that life is meaningless and our society is sick. And so I think I'm at a dilemma, which is, can I live in this society? I want to take my children, but I'm divorced and one of my children lives with his mother and stepfather. I want to leave here. I don't want my children growing up in this society. I think it's sick, and I can give you 1,000 different signs and symptoms of the sickness. But I think that we feel trapped, especially the leading cause of death of white males between the ages of 43 and 56 is suicide.
Wow.
White males between 43 and 56. Why? Why are they doing it? I'm in that age bracket. Because you feel trapped and like you have no ability to protect your children, right, from this society. I'm not worried about predators. I'm worried about the Kardashians.
Well,
I'm worried about the politics of this country, the hatred and division that we're smearing all over our children's faces every day. And so, and most of my friends feel this way. So how do we do it? We protect our children away from America? Then why fucking live here?
I hear you.
That's how I feel.
I mean, you should hear the terrible music that my daughter listens to. That's the only time I ever consider suicide is when she's listening to these songs.
Beyonce or what?
Well, no, it's worse. It's like it's I don't even know what it is. I don't want to know. And she'll watch these shows. She'll watch these shows, like these performer shows, and I'm like, I cannot. And I throw a fit. I'm like, I can't watch this show. I can't watch it. I won't watch it. Have you ever seen this show, The Masked Singer? Oh my!
Yeah, I heard about it.
It's painful. Yeah. These shows I can't watch them, and my wife is like, Dave, you have to stop saying you hate everything that she likes.
Yeah, you know what? But you got to introduce like that's why I go to Disneyland so much. I want my daughter to grow up with Snow White and Cinderella, and I'm sure that's wrong according to the powers that be, Elizabeth Warren and everybody. But I want quality. One of the things about Disney things is there's sadness, there's death, there's grieving, there's scary shit, there's loss. That's life. And life is not a fucking talent show. You know what I mean?
Right.
Life is Bambi. Life is, being, the low rung of the totem pole and scrubbing the floor with them, on your hands and knees. Disney had a way of talking about life, and then Pixar does it in a more sophisticated, modern way. But there's death, and there's loss, and there's grief, and there's scariness, and there's humanness in Disney that there is not in Bob SquarePants and all this bullshit, Nickelodeon bullshit.
I don't know. I really like SpongeBob, Bob. I'm sorry. I really do.
I knew you would.
Are you kidding me? Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob does.
I know.
He's perverted and yellow and porous, is he? He's the best. SpongeBob? Oh, my God. Ugh. Dude, have you heard the song? The song is so catchy. Jesus Christ.
SpongeBob, you ever watch it? There's no meaning to it.
No, you're wrong. You have SpongeBob slaving away for Mr. Krabs, fucking flipping the Krabby Patties, and Mr. Krab is taking advantage of SpongeBob, and SpongeBob is innocent. Bob, you got to watch it again. I think you're missing a lot of fucking imagery from SpongeBob. It's also like it's a classic stoner cartoon. Like that's
why I know you like it. It is more based in R. Crumb than it is in children's media. Well,
it's not really a kid show. It's retarded. I showed it to my daughter, and she's like, "Daddy, I'm not watching this." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And my daughter hated SpongeBob. And I had a friend that I lived with in Los Angeles who was like, 29, and he would watch it every day. And I didn't like it either. I kind of forced myself to watch it when my daughter was like 5 because I wanted to find a show that we could watch together.
Here's what, we could go down a rabbit hole with this. Children have mommies and daddies. Bambi has a mommy and a daddy. The families discuss these fantasy weird things that stoners make up.
There's no parents. Like SpongeBob doesn't have parents.
There's no families. There's no aunties and uncles and grandparents. Now, what does have those things is Caillou, Peppa Pig. So there are some things that
Max and Ruby. Max and Ruby. Ever seen
Max
that?
And Ruby? Max and Ruby's a little too Cabbage Patchy for me.
Yeah. You know what? The best one?
Caillou. I like Caillou. You don't like Caillou?
I never saw Caillou.
It's a Canadian show.
Yeah.
So anyways, the point is that I just become very paralyzed in my ability to I don't know, to help my children have the lives that they need to prepare them to live in this world. And I think that many parents, when you look at the functionability of millennials, obviously something's going wrong, right? So our society is just too harsh. Greed is the most important thing in our society.
Right.
It's the most important thing.
But like, dude, I would love to get money. You know what I mean? I would love to get rich. I would love that. You know what I mean? Like, I fucking work my ass off. I would love
I want you to have money.
No, it would be a beautiful, beautiful day. And then we'll see what happens from there. Obviously, people are fucking bugging me all the time about Patreon. You know what Patreon is? It's this thing. It's this thing that podcasters can do to get money. They put a Patreon account on their podcast, and then people give them money, or they release extra material for Patreon listeners. And me and Chris had talked about it because people make money that way. And I had said, number one, we could never do material that somebody can have and somebody else can't have based on money, because we have so many junkies who listen, and they're not going to have money, and they're going to be they're going to resent us that they can't listen to the same stuff, and that's not cool. And then worse than that though is he was well, why don't we just put a button to make money? They can give us money, the Dopey Nation. And I said, Chris, if we put a button on Dopey to get money, you and me are never going to stop talking about the money. We're just going to fucking talk about the money. It's going to go on and on and on, where we're going to obsess about the money every episode. So we didn't do that, But so Dopey hasn't been, Dopey's cost way more than it's made. But it's been a labor of love.
But you asked me why I contemplate leaving this earth. It's these things and 1,000 other things.
Well,
that just drive you nuts. Charles Bukowski said a great thing. It's not the big things in life that make a man blow his brains out. It's sometimes just the snap of a tennis shoelace.
Right.
You just can't take any more of the deck stacked against you, of the whole thing is such bullshit, right? And what Dopey did and what This American Life recognized, what Howard Stern did, and you still recognize, what I try to do, what Bob and the Monster does, is speak truth. Speaking truth in a world of fucking bullshit.
Oh, this is good, Bob. This is a very good ending. That was very nicely done. That was very nicely done. Thank you. It was an honor to have you. It was. Always is.
I love you.
Love you too.
Start editing this stuff.
Yeah, fuck you. I have to. That's what I was just thinking. I have to fucking edit this thing now. You fucking cocksucker. But I'll work it out. And thank you.
Thank you. Love the Dopey Nation. Love all the success you're having. I'll talk to you soon.
Success, smash. I'll speak to you soon.
You're going to be on CelebrityNetWorth.com before you know it.
I just hope I'm not on Celebrity Rehab. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. So that was super cool. Bob Forrest back in the mix, introducing the new Dopey listeners to the great debauchery and recovery of Bob Forrest. And speaking of new Dopey listeners, you guys definitely don't know my sweet and dear old friend, and I say old meaning time. We've known each other, not how old she is, Aurora. Welcome back to the show, Aurora.
Hey, Dave. Hey, Dopey Nation. Thanks for having me back.
How you feel?
I'm feeling good.
You have a very professional way when you come on the show. Do you do that on purpose?
No.
It's very, very positive and very, enunciating and very, you're right there. You're right in the pocket.
I feel positive these days. It's important for me to maintain a positive mental attitude.
We'll talk about that a little bit. So, when you find yourself down, what do you do?
Well, I try to allow myself time to feel the feelings. I try to, call people, go to meetings, take a hot bath, put myself to bed, I just try to change. If I'm having negative self-talk, I try to change the conversation. I pray, I meditate, I use all the tools I can to get out of a negative state.
So that's some real serious recovery talk. Before you found recovery, do you remember how you dealt with negative thinking or depression or feeling bad? How did you deal with it before you went to meetings and knew all this stuff?
I think I would call you. I think I would call a couple other of my close friends when it got really bad. But I would just think, and ruminate on things, and get high, and drink, and party, and maybe eat a bunch of chocolate.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What's the difference between thinking and ruminating and think on the stupid card in AA?
Well, isn't a stupid card it means don't think?
Oh, is that what it means? It means don't think. I never understood that. That's funny. So it means don't. That's why they put it upside down, because they mean don't think. They mean
Exactly.
They mean you're thinking too much.
Exactly. There's a guy who has 17 years sober that's in one of my regular meetings said I have to ask him tomorrow and I'll let you guys know, but they arranged the signs in a certain way. He had this snappy catchphrase for how they arrange easy does it, the upside down thing, first things first. He had I'll find out and let you guys know. But it was really cool.
You know what the Wu-Tang Clan says, right?
What? First
things first, you're fucking with the worst. I'll be sticking pins in your head like a fucking nurse. So
that reminds me of our alma mater. I remember when that record came out, and I was in the old apartments.
Uh-huh. Dude, I remember when that record came out. I remember before Enter the 36. Is it 36 Chambers or 13 Chambers?
I think it's 36.
So before Enter the 36 Chambers, they put out a cassette single, and it was Protect Your Neck on one side and Method Man on the other. And I bought the cassette single, and I played it so much. And I remember, like, I don't know, there was something about the Wu-Tang Clan that meant more to me than any other hip hop, except for maybe the Beastie Boys. But the Wu-Tang Clan were like, I like felt like I was down, like I knew what they were talking about. You know what I mean? Like, I think I went to a Wu-Tang Clan show on the West Side, and I was like, this place is dangerous, you know?
Oh, man. Like the meat packing?
Yeah, but it was before it was like, it was when it was bad. But here we are, the fucking Dopey This American Life piece came out. Forget the Wu-Tang Clan single from 1995 or 4 or 3.
No,
When?
early.
Yeah? 92?
No, maybe you're right. Maybe it was somewhere between 92 and 94.
I think it was 94, 95. But Dopey...
Angry Wu-Tang Dopey fans are going to be all up in your shit about this.
Yeah, I'm sure Andrew Gorulski will have something to say about this. But maybe... anyway, it doesn't matter. Your favorite podcast, Dopey, was just featured on This American Life.
It was beautiful. It was heartbreaking, and it was really, really powerful. I loved it. I'm so proud of you.
Is Dopey your favorite podcast?
Yes, it is.
What other podcast do you listen to?
Sometimes I listen to This American Life. I have a new friend who is a podcast head, and he suggested a shitload for me. Occasionally I listen, but mostly I listen to music.
Right. Did you tell him about Dopey?
Yeah, I've told everybody about Dopey.
So, what do you think about the This American Life piece?
I think they did a spectacular job. I thought the woman who produced it...
Dana Shivas.
I thought Dana was awesome. I love what they chose from the episodes. I love how they, gave us a peek at what your and Chris's relationship was like, the Boston accent stuff and the vaping. It was all very sweet and funny. And, I cried a lot. It just made me very emotional to hear, your little show that's becoming a big show on This American Life, and just touched by the Dopey Nation and all of these people that you help, get clean and sober, and people have a place to go, a community.
It's so. I think that the coolest thing is me and Chris in that apartment that you were at 10 billion times. Aurora was at that apartment more than anybody. Aurora, you came over every night. We were cooking and watching TV and smoking weed and smoking you weren't smoking cigarettes too much. I was smoking a lot of cigarettes. And that apartment, Chris came over and we hit record on the computer and we started this podcast. And now, obviously, unfortunately, Chris is dead. But This American Life covered our little show about living in recovery in a positive and fun way, and it's just super cool. One thing I really struggled with was the way they dealt with Todd was heartbreaking for me. And I heard from some of his people, and they were like DK called me, and he was like, "Yo, that's fucked up." The way they talked about Todd, and I felt really badly about it too, just because you want to stick up for your friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You didn't get that sense though. You weren't like, this is fucked up.
No, I mean I can understand that people that really knew Todd well and knew him for years and loved him, that they felt like you didn't get the essence of a joyful, fun Todd. But I think Todd in active addiction towards the end, that was a pretty fair assessment that he was really miserable and
Aurora, do you remember we were on the Lower East Side, it was like the end of the summer, and you came over to not that apartment, but the apartment across the street with your friend from like California or something, and Todd was over, and like you guys brought bottles of vodka, and we were like on the terrace drinking and smoking weed, and me and Todd decided we were going to go buy our first vapes, and we left you guys in the apartment, and me and Todd walked over to like Christie Street and bought 2 vapes. And Todd actually, this is so funny. We went over there to buy 2 vapes and whatever, some vape juice, which is like the most disgusting phrase for something to buy, vape juice. But we went over there to buy vapes and vape juice, and like I bought mine, and Todd didn't buy one, and I didn't say anything to him. And we leave, and I was like, dude, why didn't you buy one? And he's like, because I got one right here. And he fucking stole their tester vape when we went to the store. And he pulls it out of his pocket. And he's like, what up? And I'm just like, it's just, that's how he was. You know what I mean? He was like a kid.
That checks out, yeah. That's totally Todd.
And then we went back.
I thought it was really sweet how, you know, I like when you said you had the Todd board ready for him to be, you know, the third host of Dopey, and, you know, I just really like that they kept that bit in when you were like, dude, you remember when we were in LA, and then it kind of trails off, like, all that stuff really just broke my heart. It
was super emotional. The funny thing about that was every time Todd called into the show, I would say, dude, do you remember the time we would drive when we drove back from Los Angeles to New York? Because like it was the worst time of his life. You know, like he had to leave Los Angeles. He was all fucked up, and I was just kicking dope. We left LA. He had like 10 bags of dope. I had a bottle of methadone. I killed the bottle of methadone between LA and Las Vegas. And then after Las Vegas, somehow I convinced Todd to split the rest of the dope with me, which was like, oh, it's like prying like, you know, food away from a starving person. And Todd was he was notoriously not a generous dope fiend. But somehow I got him to share the dope with me. And then we proceeded to drive across the country getting arrested every time I got behind the wheel. You know, every time I got behind the wheel, we would get pulled over and they would find weed. And we went to a hotel and we wound up setting off a smoke alarm. And the cops came and we got busted. And Todd was driving home with like, like a quarter pound of pot, but it was broken up in a million places in his car. And literally every time we got stopped, a different piece of the stash got taken. And he got so mad at me. And to me, it was just a funny Dopey story. Even then, I was like, this is so funny. And he was like, and I was dope sick on the ride. But still, I thought it was funny. And he would hate it when I would bring it up. And that's why I loved it when they did that and they kind of faded it out. Like it was just like a memory, you know?
Yeah.
And I loved, the thing I loved about the show was how it celebrated me and Chris. And I think I'm going to play, like, there's this thing that I played last week from this guy in Boston. He wants us to call him Worcester. You know about Worcester?
I still want to say a couple things about This American Life.
Oh, please.
I mean, I just want to say that, you know, I think part of the story that was really powerful was your transformation from episode 1 being like, you know, we only tell funny drug stories to, you know, the thing that they closed the episode with from the last episode that you and Chris did when you said, like, you know, yeah, it's funny, but now that I've lost Todd, like, it has more meaning that, you know, the people you love could die now. You know, that all of that the stories are still funny, but sometimes, it's painful because you know you can lose people you love. And I think, you know, when you and Chris first started recording Dopey, I would try to listen, and I remember you were telling the story about, you know, copping dope and the drug dealer, like, giving you the dope in your mouth
Well, I think you're making an excellent point, and nobody said it, but like the fact that we got away with it so many times, like, which is why, like, we didn't get away with it this time. You know what I mean? Like, neither of them got away with it. You know, the fact that, like, I didn't, you know, I just talked to Bob Forrest about, you know, shooting up, and he shared, like, an AIDS needle, and he didn't get AIDS. He had hepatitis. I shared a needle once with, you know, but it was, you know, whatever, and I was terrified. Chris probably shared infinite needles, and he didn't get hepatitis or AIDS. And I think we got away with everything until this happened. And I didn't have a gradual transformation. Maybe I had a little gradual transformation when a bunch of people who were involved with the show started to die. When the intern Andrew died, when Dave Marshall died, when Troy died, I was struck and I was sad. But when Todd died, I was instantly changed. And also Chris, I think, had started using right when Todd died. So, like, I was totally befuddled and angry at Chris because of the way he dealt with Todd's death, because he was using, you know? So, like, when he told that story and we hear that bit of the show, it was just, like, it was very powerful for me because I was just, my hands were up. I was like, I can't do it anymore the same way because Todd died. And like, you know, it's like, oh, my God, to understand, you know, I knew Todd inside and out. If Todd was using and he told me he wasn't using, I knew he was lying. With Chris, you know, I asked him if he was using, and he said no, and I just believed him because I didn't have, like, the same understanding. And like, I couldn't, like, tell you who's using and who's not using. Maybe if someone's really fucked up, I could tell you. But if it's somebody who claims to be sober, and they're like, I'm sober, like, who am I to say, no, you're not? You know? But, you know, I don't know my point. My point is, what is my point?
I think your point is that, you know, you finally lost someone who was really, really close to you and that you loved deeply for many years, and that now you really get it, what that pain is to have and to lose an addict, you know?
Right, and it changes the show. I want the show to be chock full of dopey stories. I want the show to be chock full of recovery, and I want the show to be chock full of dumb shit. But mostly, I want the show to show people. I like that. I want the show to show people that you can have fun in recovery. That a drug addict or an alcoholic can have fun without drugs or alcohol. That's the most important thing. You know, like, I recovered by going to 12-step. You recovered by going to 12-step. You know, that worked for us. If something else works for you, you know, God bless you. But, like, all that matters is that you find a way to enjoy your life, or else it's not going to stick.
Yeah, that's very true.
And, what?
And I don't think you can do it alone, you know? I don't think I could have done it alone. I think you need other people.
Well,
And, you
okay.
know, and maybe for some people, Dopey are the, you know, Dopey Nation and the Dopey podcast are the other people, you know?
Well, that's awesome. You know, for me, like, I just feel like, because I know a lot of people who listen to the show or who are part of the Dopey Nation and don't feel like they need meetings or don't want to go to meetings, and I get that, you know? But I also cannot imagine that it could really cover what needs to get covered. You know what I mean? Like, I don't love meetings. I really don't. There's a lot of things I don't love about meetings, but they do the trick. There's a magic to them that I can't explain. That I go there and I get my medicine.
Yeah.
And it's annoying. It annoys the shit out of me. But I go there and I know that it's helping me for the rest of the week. Or whatever. You know, I only go like once a week at this point, and probably going more would be better. But, like, again, I hear you. If you guys out there are listening and you get what you need from this and the Dopey Nation and talking to your friends, then who am I to say otherwise, except that you should probably do something else. Because there's no way that's enough. How could that be enough?
It's, oh my, I'm in disbelief, Dave.
What? No, what I said was that was before Chris died, and what I said
that
was
was like from day one.
right. But what I said was because I was talking to Chris constantly, it felt like I was in constant contact with an addict in recovery, and I was going to meetings. I mean, from day one, I went to RFI every day for a year, basically. No?
Maybe.
I went quite often.
Yeah, no, you did. You did.
And I dragged you there quite often.
You did?
Anyway, I want to play this thing. It's from this Dopey fan in Gloucester. You know about Gloucester?
Yes.
I don't know if he's really in Gloucester. I just like to say Gloucester. I think he's a firefighter in Gloucester from Boston. He likes a wicked dark beer at night. He wants to call himself Worcester or Worcester. Do you know about that? It's spelled like Worcester, but it's pronounced Worcester.
Oh God.
You don't know about that?
No.
Anyway, he put this thing together. It's
Sober or what? He's drinking wicked dark beer.
No, I just like to say wicked dark beer. I think he's sober. I don't know if he's sober, but he sent in 10 episodes that he called Dopey, Chopped, and Screwed. And this one is episode 2. I think it's called You're Ruining the Podcast. So now I'm going to play it, okay?
Okay.
All right. If anybody out there in the Dopey Nation is good at, like, cutting up audio, why don't you hit us up? We will hand over the Dopey archives to you, and you can create a little audio collage. What? You want to do something with those one-liners?
So this is like a chopped and screwed episode.
That's what we'll call it, the Chopped and Screwed episode.
Hello, and welcome to Dopey, the podcast about drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. My name is Dave.
Dopey. It's retarded. Hello, and welcome to Dopey, the podcast about drugs, addiction, and Vietnamese food. Welcome to Dopey, the podcast about
drugs, addiction, and dumb shit.
The podcast about Kenny Rogers. Welcome to Ice Cream, the podcast about ice cream flavors.
Yeah.
No?
No.
Hello, and welcome to Dopey, the podcast about anger and sadness and lonely, lonely spaces. Homeless on the dark comedy of homelessness. We're laughing at Frank's life because he's homeless.
It's so bad, dude. Well, he makes more money than I get from my parents.
Why couldn't we be on the Howard Stern channel?
I don't know. Probably because we're extremely disorganized and we're just two rambling idiots.
Shut the fuck up. You're ruining the organization of the show. We're recording Dopey and the episode's really bad.
Why is it my
You're
fault?
the worst podcast producer in the history of
You're
podcasts.
the producer. I'm the sidekick.
With all the dumb shit we've ever done. Sign language on the podcast.
They can't even see it. I'm doing it to you and he's just watching me.
Anyway.
Should we call Daniel? All right, so do you have his number?
Yeah.
All right, good, because you can hold the phone, because I don't like
No, I'm not holding the phone.
You're holding the phone.
No, you know why
this
I'm not?
This is your penance for Leland.
No, this
is your penance
bullshit.
for Leland.
I'm never holding the phone again.
Dopey Nation, it sucks to have to hold the phone.
No, that's not what sucks.
Because I correct it.
Yeah, you have to.
Because Dave fucking holds it.
I'll never correct you. You fucking call him.
Because I have to edit the thing.
You don't do anything. Just you edit your mistakes.
All right, what's his fucking number?
It's in the Facebook messages. You think I know his number?
It, dude.
I swear to God. It's like I hold I hold the phone and he's shooting me these dagger looks like I'm like fucking in gymnastics class doing it wrong. Like I can't do a forward roll. It's like you suck. It's like the amount of shame I feel just from holding the phone wrong. I'm going back to gymnastics class over here.
Make sure you hold the phone the correct way to the microphone. That's the wrong side. It only records that way. There you go. Put on speakerphone.
No, I was going to put it to my ear. You're ruining our podcast.
You got to hold the butt of the phone right here. You got to hold it just right.
You just fucked the whole thing up. You just pressed the wrong button. Because you're stupid. You fucked up because you're stupid.
Well, can you hold it the right way?
Well, this show's ruined. Show's fucking done. Here we go.
Put it on speakerphone.
I'm doing it.
And hold it right.
So you just ruined the whole show.
Okay. You got the number. This is dead air again, Dave.
It's calling, mother.
Why does it take you so long to do anything?
Oh my god. It's like... You're very unpleasant. Yeah. Another episode down the tubes.
Dave's so bad at holding the phone. No, you're holding it the wrong... The butt needs to go right here, and the microphone is here. Okay. And turn the volume up so we can hear it.
Yes, mother. This is the worst episode ever. Why are you shaking your head?
Go ahead.
Okay.
But hold it over here so we can hear it. You gotta hold it to this. This is where the microphone is, right there. But
maybe you should hold it.
Hold the butt of the phone. There you go.
You should hold it.
You should shut up.
You should go fuck yourself.
You should go fuck yourself.
You should go fuck that sober guy. This might be the worst episode of Dopey ever. We did Chili's baby back ribs for like 20 minutes. Worst episode ever.
It's hot as fuck in here. It smells like farts too.
It's because you've been farting the whole night, and I don't want to make the show about farting, addiction, and dumb shit. Now, this is the most boring episode of Dopey in the history of Dopey. I think it's horrible. I think it's the worst episode we ever did. Can I ask you a question? What? Do you enjoy ruining our show? This is the saddest version of Dopey ever.
How's this episode going? You think we're just too all over the place here?
No, don't ever ask that on the fucking show again.
Right.
You fucking cocksober. Why do you need to ruin our podcast by worrying where it's going? You're such a little pussy, man.
What do you mean?
You're such a pussy.
Yeah. I think you ruined that episode.
Chris, the episode was really not great.
Yeah, and whose fault is that?
I would say yours.
But you started the whole... I thought you were going to start fucking talking about Dopey again.
No, enough about Dopey. This is not Dopey the podcast about Dopey the podcast. I don't want this to be Dopey the podcast about us talking about one of the worst episodes of Dopey.
Our website feature sucks. Our whole website sucks.
Dude, our website is so dumb. We'd have so many more. Have you noticed that all we get is these canceled t-shirt orders? Whenever somebody tries to order a t-shirt, it just gets canceled because our website sucks.
Write us a review. Try not to put me down and give me a brain aneurysm. I don't want any feedback unless you liked it.
Say toodles.
Toodles.
Ugh. I want to take a walk around the world. I wonder would it do me any good. Until I get some money in my pocket, then I guess I'll just have to walk around my neighborhood. But I want to be good so bad. Want to be so good, so bad, so bad. I want to be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. And I want to take a ride up in the sky. Watch this aeroplane just pass me by. And I want to see a Lear jetliner take a dive, just to show all of these people what it means to be alive. But I want to be good so bad. Want to be so good, so bad, so bad. I want to be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. And my shadow's getting smaller and smaller. And it's time to where I stand. Shadow's getting smaller and smaller. And it's time to where I stand. And I wonder would they pay it any mind when I leave this busted city far behind. I'll take the high road, however far it winds, because peace and love are very, very, very hard to find. And I want to be good so bad. Want to be good so bad, so bad. I want to be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. Damn it, all these suckers make me mad. And it's all I ever had. And it's all I ever had. And these suckers make me mad, and I want to call my dad. And it's all I ever had. 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 And these suckers make me mad, and it's all I ever had. And I want to call my dad. And it's all I ever had. And it's all I ever had. And it's all I ever had.
So
So thank you, Mr. Wusta, for the amazing Dopey Chopped and Screwed, which I love. I love hearing me and Chris in the heyday. What'd you think, Aurora?
I loved hearing it. It's bittersweet. It's nice to hear you and Chris giving each other shit and having fun.
And it's funny, like, how crazy he was about how I held the phone and how crazy it made me. And let's welcome to the show probably the world's biggest Dopey fan, my dad, Alan.
Hi, Aurora.
One.
Hi. How are you, Alan?
I'm good. Nice hearing your voice.
Yeah, it's nice to hear your voice. I'm trying to watch my ums and my lights.
Yeah. You said in a previous episode you had a bone to pick with me. So, but I said wonderful things about you. I love you. You're terrific.
All right, let's just come on. This is not the fucking Love Boat. What did you guys think about the Chopped and Screwed? What do you have to say?
I thought it was terrific, except that you got the feeling that he did the same episode over and over again. But you said there was many different episodes. Like you guys couldn't figure out how to hold the phone. Is that pretty much the gist of it, right?
It sounded like the same thing, but when I first heard that, when I first listened to that Chopped and Screwed, I was alone in my house in the living room late at night, really excited to listen to it. And the first episode kind of bummed me out. And the second one, when I heard him saying that same thing about, he loved to say the butt of the mic.
Yeah.
And I was just like laughing. And to me, it was just so funny. And it's so bittersweet. And it's like, it's almost as though Chris is alive when I listen to that.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. Very funny. Very funny. And we're holding the microphone in a very strange way now, too, by the way.
Aurora, you gotta go, huh? My dad's gonna ruin the fucking show. Like I don't know why. I don't know why he needs to comment on microphone holding techniques.
All right.
It's still a hot button issue for you, Dave.
No, yeah, it's a hot button issue, but he'll get his act together. Don't worry.
Yeah,
He'll be fine.
It's still a fucking trigger, huh?
Yeah, I'm easily triggered.
Excuse my language, Alan.
Do you want to hear? Let's hear my dad's take on This American Life.
I thought it was very moving. I cried a little bit. It was incredibly sad. And,
What made you cry?
come on, Chris was sitting where I'm sitting right now. I mean, they did so many episodes here, and he was here all the time, and he would hug me, and it's just awful stuff, really awful. But and I think I don't know, maybe you thought the same thing, that the show showed how David changed. I mean, how
I did. Exactly. His transformation. Yes.
I mean, at the beginning, fun and games, and it turned out to be very, very important to the Dopey Nation that he was so honest and straightforward, and then realized this ultimate horrible thing about death and this fentanyl stuff. It's just, it's very moving show.
If they made any mistake, it was that they portrayed the show in the end like it's out of gas, or like that I have a lobotomy rocking in a rocking chair in the attic of my house trying to do an interview for Dopey, which is almost true, but not quite true.
No, that's what I wanted to say. I thought that there should have been a shout out that how
shout out. You hear that?
I learned that from you guys. I mean, believe me, yeah, I don't like speaking like that. But anyway, that people, they didn't get the message that Dopey has helped so many people, and that it's still going, and what persistence and perseverance David had to keep it going, and how much energy he puts into this. And that's where I want to say how proud I am of him, because somebody said, "Are you proud?" And I said, "Yeah, I am very, very proud. I'm proud of all of this stuff." Even though there was a 1-star review this week.
There was a 1-star review.
Which was ridiculous. I don't even understand what the guy was.
American Life or of Dopey?
No, of Dopey, but I think the guy only listened to one episode, and he didn't obviously listen to more, which is why I think whoever is now tuning in should listen to more than one.
That is not the case. I'm going to read you the 1-star review.
It was terrible. You should.
Wait, I just want to say, I think that, that they did say that you were still making Dopey, that, you have to be there for the Dopey Nation, and that you're getting bigger guests.
They don't really. They really alluded to it. They were like, I don't know, maybe Dopey's still going, maybe it's not. Sounds like an interview show, blah, blah, blah. They did not say that Dopey has risen like a phoenix from the ashes, saving junkies from coast to coast, from Asia to Europe to Australia to the dark continent of Africa. We are saving addicts one dope at a time.
Get control, Dave.
He's out of control. I mean, that's ridiculous. What was that rule, 62 or 64? What's that rule?
I think my dad's reading too much weird. Why don't you give a shout out to someone in the Dopey Nation while you're feeling so good about yourself?
No, isn't there a rule about don't think too highly of oneself? Or
No,
it's
don't take yourself too seriously.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then.
No, I think also don't think too highly of yourself is in there too.
Yeah, that should be there.
Ooh, I don't think that highly of myself. Listen to this review. It's a 1-star review from Branson Forever, who says, "Good job," but he says it sarcastically. He gives 1 star. Good job. And it says, "Brag about being hooked on H. SMFH."
Yeah.
What do you think SMFH means, Dad?
I have no clue.
It means shake my fucking head. Like this.
Well, he has to listen to more than one episode.
It's not that. He thinks that the show glorifies drug use. But Aurora, imagine being, and it's funny because I'm a little bit like my dad, but imagine being like my dad and you see things like SMFH and you have no idea what it means.
That's relatable. I have to look up those acronyms a lot.
What's another one? Do you know what TTYL means?
I have no clue.
Talk to you later.
What's another one?
I don't get all this stuff. I really
The one
don't.
I hate the most is IDK. I hate that one.
IDK. You know what that means? What would you know?
I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I knew that one.
So what else do you guys have to say about this?
I'm just. I was wondering, what about all these new listeners? Like this guy, the 1-star guy. I'm saying that they need to do lots of listening to be able to see how the show has changed and grown.
The new listeners can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And there's been a ton of people who have written in and said they listened to one episode and they can't believe how bad it is and they're not going to listen anymore. And then there's other people who have written in and... No, that's not true.
That's not
There's other people who have written in and said they can't believe how dynamic and amazing the podcast is.
And there are lots of those people. Lots. That first thing you said is not true.
So when I say we're saving the world one dope at a time and you say... Easy there, and now you need to quell about the show.
You could quell and still be under control, yes.
Aurora, do you know what the word quell means?
No.
It's a Yiddish word for being proud.
Yes.
Quell. Like, I'm quelling that you're enjoying your life in recovery so much.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Do you want to play a game show thing before you go, or do you want to just go?
What is the game show thing? I'm intrigued. But I do have to go. I'm going for dinner with my friend who's here from Brooklyn.
Yes, I know your friend. It's a minute game show. You want to do it before you go?
Yeah, 1 minute. Let's do it.
All right. Yeah, Dad, go to the other room. We'll try it with you afterwards.
I don't know.
The game show is called The Stash Word, and I conceived of it, but my friend and pseudo-dopey producer Sam, who's very sick in the hospital, gave us these questions, so let's wish Sam a speedy recovery.
Sam, I hope you feel better.
He's all fucked up, man. They're like sticking needles in his lungs. He's like, we want Sam to feel better. It's been very hard to make the show without Sam, just so you know. Anyway, you ready?
I'm ready.
You ready for the stash word? Here we go. Number 1, how many grams make an eighth of an ounce?
3.5?
Yes. This hallucinogen is commonly known as buttons.
Mushrooms.
No. Try again.
What?
It's something that Native Americans would take on spirit journeys.
Ayahuasca?
Keep trying. They take it. You want to pass? They take it in the Southwest. Jim Morrison lived on it. Yes. What constitutes a bundle?
Ooh, 20 bags?
No.
10 bags?
Yes. What does it mean when you boost something?
You shoot water? You shoot some other liquid?
No.
I don't know.
Jesus Christ. This is a cigar slit open and the tobacco is mixed with... Oh, we're done. Yeah, you got that. To boost is to steal. Like, yo, I just boosted 10 Wu-Tang Clan CDs.
Oh, but I thought it also meant like when you like shoot, when you like don't have like drugs left and you just shoot a little bit of like resin or something or tar, like you just have like water in a spoon, or you would like add water.
All right, take it easy. That's not what I mean. Do you want to hear my dad do it, or do you want to get off?
Alan is not going to know what. He'll
Dad!
Yeah.
Come on, let's hear him.
I don't know if this is right to make your dad do this.
I've always wanted. The whole point of the stash word was to make my dad play it one day, and this is the day. Okay. You cannot look at the screen. Have a seat. Welcome, Alan, to play the stash word. All right, here we go. We're going to start now. How many grams make an eighth of an ounce?
2.
Wrong. This hallucinogen is commonly known as buttons. The Native Americans took it.
Oh, peyote.
Correct. What constitutes a bundle?
2 shopping carts filled with food.
No. What does it mean when you boost something?
It means to steal something.
Nice. How'd you know that?
I knew that.
How'd you know that?
That's a word that...
Okay. This is a cigar slit open, and the tobacco is mixed with marijuana.
Beats chopped liver.
Before crack, this was known as smoking cocaine.
Salt.
A window pane is a common term for what drug?
Glassine stuff.
What?
Glassine.
What is that?
I don't know. It's a window thing.
This is the Jamaican word for marijuana.
See you later. I don't know these words.
This is an animal, but it's all... What happened? Hello?
Why is Alan getting more questions than me?
I just want to see him get a lot wrong. This is an animal but it's also someone who transports drugs.
Oh, a burro.
No, it's another word.
Donkey.
You can't even pronounce donkey. I'm done with you with the stash.
Oh, what's
word.
the right answer?
Mule.
Oh, close.
All right, Aurora, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, and thank you, Alan. It was good to talk to you.
Yes, love to you, Aurora. Love to you.
Lots of love to you.
Lots of love to everybody. All right, thank you. And Dad, do you have anything else you want to say before it's over?
Stay strong, Dopey Nation.
All right, there we go. Thank you. Goodbye.
Stay strong, Dopey Nation.
Say it again.
Stay strong, Dopey Nation.
All right, Rory. Talk to you later.
All right, Dan. Bye.
All right, that's always fun to have Aurora and my dad on the show. But before we go, I want to do a Dopey voicemail, because Dopey is not Dopey without Dopey stories. And I've probably told 99% of my Dopey stories, so I could use some of yours. Send in crazy funny stories. Keep them as short as you can. If they're really, really good, make them longer. Whatever, use your best judgment. But keep them coming. I love to have you guys be a part of the show. If it's music, if it's voicemails. Oh yeah, that was Rocker T in the beginning of the show doing the Dopey podcast. You know, let me know what you guys think of Rocker T. That was a guy I used to go see when I was in high school and college. We always loved him. And check him out on Spotify, Rocker T. Just T, the letter T. Anyway, here's Danielle with the Dopey story. Send in some stuff, send in some art. Here we go.
Hi, Dopey Nation. My name is Danielle. I'm a new member to the Dopey Nation crew. I figured I wanted to put one of my stories out there. I just tried to do it, but didn't succeed with sending it. So here we go again. So I was telling my story about back in 2014. I was in a car accident with a friend of mine. He nodded out the wheel, and I knew he was gonna hit this tree because he swerved once. and I caught him. And then the second time, I just braced for impact. I just knew it was coming. It totally ruined my high. It was the worst. We hit the tree. I'm scrummaging to pick up all my shit. It was a mess. Whatever. We go to the hospital, and I wasn't going to do anything. I wasn't going to press any, go through any insurance companies or anything like that, or any personal injuries. Well, I was suggested by family to do so. And at the time, I'm like, eventually I'll get money out of this. This isn't really a bad idea. So I did it. Went through a personal injury lawyer. And because my break was my arm. It wasn't like my back or my neck. Hopefully this was settled out in a few months. Well, if you're going to be getting settlements, you can go through a loan. You can go get a loan. So I was like, all right, I'll go get this loan. Well, I got one, and obviously that was never enough because I had a drug problem, so I had to blow through all the money. So I took out another loan. And at the time, I was actively involved in a group on Instagram, Real Junkies of Instagram. It was a real thing. They've tried to ban it, I believe now. I mean, like the things that they would post. I used to post videos of myself shooting up. I mean, like it was like drugs, like paraphernalia, you name it, it was there. And I met this girl named Nicole, and she lived not far. She lived in Rochester, and I live in Buffalo. And I was like, okay, we'll meet up. I got all this money coming. I'll come to you, come to your dude. It'll be great. And so, because at the time I was paying so much money, and I think I owed my dealer at the time, and I was going through someone else that knew her, and I still owed her money, and I didn't want to pay her back yet. I wasn't ready to. So I was like, all right, let's take this trip over to Rochester. So the time I was with my daughter's father, we were both addicted. We drove our daughter over to a family member's house, drove over to Rochester, met Nicole in some random ass parking lot, and went and got drugs in some sketchy part of the neighborhood. Shit was so cheap. I couldn't believe it. Mind you, I obviously took care of her because, she was helping me out. And after that, got high in the car. I actually still have pictures from that day. I have pictures from that day after we all got high in the car. It's fucking sick. And after that day, we never talked again. Maybe once after that, we never talked again. I went home, and there's a girl that I still actually talk to this day. She's sober. She's from Texas, and we met on the Real Junkies of Instagram. And she would talk to me. She's like, right after I'd get high, I'd go in the parking lot and I'd walk and pace back and forth. And she would talk to me and calm me down. And because at the time I was speedballing, and my addiction was really at its worst. It was bad. And it wasn't until not the first or third attempt or second attempt in detox. It was like the third attempt in detox when I finally actually succeeded. And my grandmother refused to give me money anymore because I had already blew through my $55,000 settlement from my car accident. I blew through it at least in 2 months. My ex at the time, my ex now, he was taking my debit card and going to the bank every morning and withdrawing money and going to see the dealer before I even woke up. So I'm thankful today that I am no longer living that life. I am thankful for this podcast. And Dave, I truly appreciate everything that you put out. It's nothing but good karma, and good things are coming. And I know Chris is listening with us, and he is proud of all the work that you're doing, man, because this is powerful. Truly is. Stay strong, Dopey Nation. Toodles.
All right, thanks, Danielle, for the voicemail. If any of you guys want to send in a Real Junkies of Instagram voicemail, that would be awesome. Or if you have any kind of crazy, dopey story that you want to tell, send it in. These stories are like the lifeblood of the show. We always need them. Send it to dopeypodcast@gmail.com. If you guys are artists, send in art. If you're musicians, send in music. We love for you to be a part of the show. You know what to do. Follow us on Facebook. Join the Dopey Nation group. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Reddit for all the fucking knuckleheads out there. Follow us on Twitter for all the nice Dopey fans out there, like Mike and Kevin and the rest of y'all. Steph. Love those Dopey Twitter guys. And leave a voicemail, do all that stuff. Leave a review. Chris loved reviews. Stay strong, Dopey Nation, and fucking toodles for Chris, who we miss.
This song is for Bradley.
Fuck Bradley.
Wherever you might be. All right. Got some jungle. 1, 2. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We don't have a name for our band. Thank you very much.